Amen. It's good to be here today. Grateful for the opportunity to even speak at General Ministry Conference. And thankful for my pastor. And that was perfect. And basically in line with everything I have to say today. And I just want to say from the onset that I definitely would not be here without Pastor McCool, Pastor Nate Whitley, who will be speaking here at the end. And this is kind of a tag team deal, and we wanted it to be that way because this is not a one-sided ministry. It's not just, well, the Hispanic minister is the guy that does all the work, and that's not how this will ever work in any ministry. I think that if, as Pastor said, and I'm going to touch on this even more here in a little bit, but Pastor has to have a burden. Pastor has to have a vision for it, because it doesn't matter how much of a burden I have as the Hispanic ministry leader or coordinator, administrator, pastor, whatever title you want to give me or give whoever you're putting in charge. Doesn't matter how much vision, ambition, or passion I have, it will never exceed the burden and the vision of the pastor or the facilitator. Even if you're borrowing a building from a pastor. And I think that a lot of what I have to do is and I put it in a way that I don't mean it degrading but I have to educate. As he said, he doesn't know how to start a Spanish work. I have extensive experience in it, and my father has extensive experience in it, but even my father, who's around 60 years old, even he can't come in and grow a church beyond the burden and the vision of a pastor. And I've learned that through the years that, I have to submit myself, submit my ministry, submit my passion, my ambition, my goals under the leadership of my pastor. I'm thankful for him, thankful for Pastor Nate and all they do. And so I want to just talk a little bit. We obviously cannot cover all the things that we can do to launch a Hispanic or Spanish-speaking ministry. Suffice to say, we are putting together the Tri-State District, and I hope that you will make yourself available to come to this event that we're putting together. We'll put out some dates on social media. We'll even try to send it to Missions America so they can send it out, promote it, and do it right. And we want to have enough time to plan it. But we're going to try to put together a workshop where you can invest your time and your money to come and get some resources on how to launch or start and even get connected to our model and see if it fits what you're doing at your church. So hopefully soon we'll have that together. Talked to Pastor Nate about it yesterday. He gave me the green light practically, and we've been putting together something. So excited about that. So if this isn't enough for you, if this isn't, and it won't be, it really won't, I encourage you to invest in seeking, coming and being a part, even visiting, if your pastor will allow you, visiting our church, visiting what we have, and seeing if we can help in any kind of way. And I'll make myself available to you in that regard as well. I just want to say, Spanish-speaking ministries is one of the fastest and largest growing ministries in the apostolic movement today. And not just in the United States, but globally. You may not know this, but there is a primarily Spanish-speaking church in Perez, and it's a large one. There's a Spanish-speaking church almost in every part of the globe. You can go anywhere in the world and find Spanish-speaking people, because they will, I don't know why, but they will go anywhere. They will go anywhere. And so when we talk about launching or starting a Spanish-speaking ministry, one of the first things that we must do is define the end goal and the purpose from the beginning. And I think that this is a fear a lot of times, because we don't want to get I guess the saying is the cart before the horse. And I understand that, but you're not getting the cart before the horse when you define exactly what you want to see in the end. And defining what your purpose and what your end goal with this ministry, and Pastor already talked about why you should do it, but I'm talking about the purpose of it and the end goal of it, where you want to see it in 5 to 10 years. I think it's healthy to talk about where you would like to see your Spanish ministry in 5 to 10 years, establishing realistic goals, even short-term goals. when I sat down with Pastor Nate at Starbucks, it was so funny because he's like, Joseph, you're a salesman and you could probably make a lot of money in sales. But I put together an entire presentation, and I had a 6-month goal of what I wanted to see in the Spanish ministry. I wanted 3 families. I wanted 3 home Bible studies. I wanted weekly Bible studies. I wanted weekly prayer meetings. And that was my short-term goal. My long-term goal was to establish a church, not a department, not a ministry. And you know what Pastor Nate said to me? He said, not right now. And that was very discouraging at the moment because, my ambition was high, my passion was high. I didn't fully understand why we couldn't do it right off the bat. And we waited, and it seemed like a long time, and I'm glad we waited, and I'm glad he told me no. Because I wasn't in a position in life to embark in that journey or that ministry. I'm still young, but I was younger even then. My marriage was new, and so, I think that speaks to the level of trust and confidence your pastor has in you, and the level of trust and confidence you have in your pastor. We've already talked about your burden, your passion will never exceed his vision and his burden, and I can speak to that on so many levels. But suffice to say, I think it's important that you, as a pastor or you as a ministry leader, have that discussion with leadership on what's the end goal. And there's 2 types of ministries for Spanish or Spanish-speaking ministries, Hispanic ministries. There is a department-based Spanish-speaking ministry, and then there's a Spanish-speaking ministry that is a church launch or a daughter work based. So there's 2 primary and really only 2 Spanish-speaking ministries that are in existence today. You can go to any church that has a Spanish-speaking ministry. You only find that one is either a department of the church or one is a daughter work of the church. Neither is right, neither is wrong. I just believe one is more effective than the other. But both can work for whatever you're doing, for wherever you're at. So I want to talk about a little bit. A department-based ministry is no different than your Sunday school department. It has a Sunday school class during Sunday school hours. When you bring them into the main sanctuary, you interpret through the headsets. You have an interpreter, and you have a department leader, and it is a department of the church. You can promote people from that class to the English church. You can establish an English speaking class, and you can get them integrated into the mother church, and you can form a strong Spanish ministry as a department-based ministry. And I've seen it work in some places, and I've seen it not even get close to coming out of the ground in others, right? When God called me, this is just me personally, so you may feel different. You may not feel the call to be a pastor. You may not feel called to be, you may just feel called to be a facilitator. Then department-based ministry is for you. If you don't feel the burden of pastoring people, you just want to be a facilitator, administrator, and you just want to help, funnel people into the church through a language that your pastor may not speak. I think a department-based ministry is for you, is for your church. Because trying to pastor a church when you don't have the burden of a pastor or the call of a pastor can be detrimental to your life, ministry, marriage, etc. So that's the department-based ministry. I can't speak much on it because that's not what we do at FAC. We are a Spanish-speaking ministry that is a church launch or daughter work based ministry. And we're not I don't know the terminology, but we're not independent in the sense of we have our own tax ID, we're doing our own. We're still very much attached to FAC Knoxville. We're still very much a part. Our brand is, their brand is our brand. Their logo is our logo. Their motto is our motto. What their vision is our vision. What pastor, whatever vision or whatever strategies he casts to the main church is what I cast to the Spanish church. And I filter everything that I do and everything that we do at PIA through FAC Knoxville. PIA is just FAC in Spanish. First Apostolic Church, Primera Iglesia Apostólica. And that is intentional. That is on purpose. Because I didn't think that starting a Spanish church that had a different name and had a different goal and different vision was effective for where we are. Our campus is such a large campus, such an attractive campus. To try to do anything different would be working against what Pastor McCool, Bishop McCool, and Pastor Whitley and the team there at FAC has done. I would be undoing a lot of what they've built. And they have built a launching pad for us to just grow. What we have and what opportunities you may have is what many Spanish ministers die for and would kill for. A facility with no rent, sound equipment. Some of your churches even have videography, photography. I mean, these are things that Spanish churches are struggling in. Areas they're struggling in. Young people that are willing and ready to just come help you at a moment's notice. And we have some of our PIH. If you help in PIH, I want you to stand up in some way, shape, or form. If you help in our PIH services, Alex and Emanuela, you can stand. They just restart helping. And Dom, you've been on our praise team before. You better stand up, boy. Stephen's back there. Stephen and Brittany used to come to all the services, and they still do in some way, shape, or form. They help us with our photography, videography. But this is the team, and these guys, some of them don't even come to the Spanish church, the actual Spanish service. But these are the people that I rely on to do the things that we do: social media, live stream, music, tracks. All the things that I want to have at PIA comes through, is funneled through FAC Knoxville. And it's not adding a burden to them. It's not adding a burden to the mother church. It's not going to them constantly complaining about what I don't have. It's finding resources and resources that are available at my disposal and being able to pull that and lighten the load for Pastor McCool and Pastor Whitley. So I think defining the end goal from the beginning, and I got off on a rabbit trail though, I'm sorry, but defining the goal from the beginning is important. And this must be defined from the beginning and reiterate throughout, because a clear vision will always give you clear direction. And what I mean by that is when you have clear vision, there are not a lot of obstacles that will stand in the way of you getting to where you want to go. You know, we have done in 3 years what it has taken a lot of churches 5 to 10 years. But it's because there was always a clear vision of where we're going. There was never this, oh, well, we don't know if we're a department or a church. You know, we sat down with Pastor, we had that discussion, we've had those difficult talks where it's like, hey, what are we doing here? What do we want to see? What do you want to see? How can I fulfill what your vision is? And I'll never forget, when I first got to FAC Knoxville, I think it was my first service there, I sat down with Pastor McCool and I spoke to him about the idea of me moving to Knoxville. And that was the only time he had mentioned to me that there was a Spanish ministry available if I was interested. But he never pushed for me to do it, because he would not put that on me unless I felt to do it. And I appreciated that. I appreciate it because everywhere I went, it was like, hey, you need to start Spanish work. You need to start Spanish ministry. So, well, I don't even know if I want to do that. And because he never put it on me, you know, I thought, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to serve here. And I served in the youth ministry. I served as a middle school director. I served over the kids camp. I served in many capacities in the English church before God started to deal with my heart. And I won't forget the day that God called me to start Spanish work. Pastor preached a message about what revival looks like. And he talked about the many ethnicities in our community and in our demographic, how there is just so many cultures and so many ethnicities, and we needed to reach them. And the very next day, I found myself at church, coincidentally, in the building that we're using now for the Spanish church. I was in there in tears on my face and just laid out before the Lord. And God convicting me to lift and start a Spanish work. And me fighting with God, because I was like, God, I want to get out of Knoxville. I want to get out of FAC. I want to go evangelize. I want to go preach the world. And God said, I got an open door for you. I have a door of evangelism open for you, and you refuse to walk through it. And when I felt that burden, it took me a while to even go before Nate. And when I went to Nate, who's my direct supervisor, this is kind of how it works. I'm just going to give you our model, and if you get inspired by it, it helps you in any way. I hope it does. But Pastor Nate is my direct supervisor. So I report directly to him. Anything I do, anything we plan, any event we have, it goes directly to him. Not because he asked me to, not because it's required or I'm obligated to, because that works. It's effective. It's a safeguard for me. I don't have to defend myself to the church. Like, why is Spanish church doing this? Why is Spanish? That's my buffer. It's like, well, Pastor Nate, it's his idea. And he does a very good job of not just defending us, promoting us. He got up, I think it was beginning of the year, and he made a statement to the church. He said, if you're thinking about missions, if you're thinking about giving to missions, he said, we got a mission work next door. The very next day, we had close to, and I'm struggling to say it, but we had a great sum of money given to the Spanish account. A great sum of money. The next day. Because he got up and said, PIA is doing a work and they need people to invest. And you may not be able to go to the church, but you can put your money where your mouth is. And people started to give, and now there's people that are giving to our work because of the promoting and the help of the English. That's the benefit of working alongside your pastor. And this is what I got to say. It has to do with this right here. Is that in your ministry, the Spanish-speaking ministry, the success and the lifeline of this ministry rises and falls on the relationship between you, the Spanish-speaking leader, and the pastor, the facilitator. Because if there's not a clear line, and it goes beyond a clear line of communication. Not just communicating your goals, your vision, your passion, your burden, but it's a unique relationship. You have to have that relationship with your pastor where they're pouring into you. And here's the benefit if you're a young man or a young person, a young couple that wants to start the work. Here's the benefit of subjecting yourself or submitting yourself to a pastor when you're starting to work like this, is that you get Bible college for free. You get pastoral training for free. I didn't know how to be a pastor. I was running into situations already within the Spanish work where I was having to deal with some serious issues. And I said, Pastor, what do I do? And he said, you're the pastor. Deal with that. And he would walk me through the process. He would walk me. I did my first baby dedication. I did my first wedding ceremony under the Spanish ministry. Had my first marriage counseling. I hadn't been married a year. Here I was writing a book on how to have a successful marriage. And so I have all the training that I need because of the relationship that we have formed. And I think that again, I know too many Spanish works that are successful. Talking about successful, I know some that are not. And the ones that are successful because of the relationship between the English-speaking pastor or the facilitator and the Spanish-speaking pastor. We can talk about the work in Atlanta West that is a successful Spanish work. Pastor Daryl Johns and Marvin Reyes. We have modeled what they've done and taken it to Knoxville. We didn't invent this. It's tried and proven. There is a great relationship between Pastor Marvin Reyes and Pastor Daryl Johns, and because of that, there is a successful Spanish-speaking church that has been in existence for over 12 years. We can talk about the church in Memphis, Tennessee. Pastor Julio May. Pastor Julio May runs over 500 Spanish-speaking individuals. He started under Bobby Lewis, who is originally from the AOJC. He submitted himself to Bobby Lewis. Bobby Lewis was his pastor, and that's how they started the Spanish work. And they've been in existence for over 10 years. But it rises and falls on the relationship between the English-speaking pastor and the Spanish leader or administrator or whoever it is that's leading up the charge. Because you can take all the methods, you can take all the ideas, you can take all the things you'd like to do for your Spanish church to grow and throw it out the window if the facilitator or the pastor of the church and you do not get along or do not understand each other or can't communicate well. The reason a lot of English-speaking pastors don't want to start a Spanish church is because they've been burnt by guys that they couldn't even communicate with. There was no clear line of communication. And I'll be transparent with you and say this, that when me and my father discussed it, we had our differences because I told my dad, I said, Dad, you won't be successful starting a church under somebody because there's not a clear line of communication. You can't understand each other. You just don't, as much as you would like to, you don't speak English very well. And so there has to be a mediator. There has to be that individual that says, hey, I want to define his vision, his goals to this church. Because they don't, and that's what Spanish-speaking ministries is. Spanish-speaking ministries is not a ministry we do because we're trying to reach a different culture. They do that at their church. They're reaching various cultures at their church. They're reaching upper class, middle class, lower class, low lives, high lives, no lives. They're reaching the cultures. So I'm not doing anything different. What I'm doing is I'm using a different means of reaching, which is language. It's a different language. And I'm not going to get into all of it, but culture is created through language. Okay? So the language that you speak creates the culture. And I want to say this because I copied and pasted from a book because I thought it was so good. Kelly Nix, he pastors in San Antonio, Texas. He wrote a book called A Practical Guide on Intercultural Communications. And he says it's becoming increasingly difficult to make cultural generalizations. The face of America and of our world is rapidly changing in response to our relatively newfound ability to move around the globe with ease. Societies and cultures that used to know each other primarily by reading books about faraway lands are now bumping into each other on sidewalks on a regular basis. So while it is disingenuous and potentially harmful to try to impose a culture generalization, which is what happens. Culture generalization is when you say, hey, we should start serving tacos to the Hispanic community because they all love tacos. We should hang a Mexican flag up in our church to show that we want to start a Spanish church. That's a cultural generalization. Or a stereotype on every individual. Generalization can be very helpful when you are trying to understand a culture at large, respect for others' cultures, in his opinion and mine. The cornerstone of good communication, your culture and theirs are equally valuable. And avoid the trap of ethnocentricity, the belief that your culture is superior to others. When it comes to culture differences, it's not necessarily wrong, it's just different. In all nationalities, there are two major components of each culture, and this is what I want to touch on. There is an individualistic culture, and there is a collective culture. I'm not going to get into all that because you can read books on it and probably understand more than what I'm going to tell you. But I will say this, it's not about being liberal or conservative, it's not a politic view. It's just two different cultures. You're either individualistic, your value system is different. You value time, you value money, you value possessions. That's individualistic. Collective culture is a culture that values relationship. That's what the Hispanic culture is. It's a collective culture. They're a culture that values relationship. That's why they get to church late. Why? Because if someone shows up at their house 5 minutes before service, they're not leaving until they're ready to leave. And when they get to church, they're not going to want to leave until they're ready to leave. Because they would rather have a good experience than to have the allotted time. See, in an English-speaking church, and I struggle to say American church because it's an individualistic culture, we're looking at our watch thinking, when's this guy going to finish? In a collective culture or a Spanish-speaking church, they don't have a consciousness of time. You can sing and worship for hours, and they would still want you to get up and preach. And I'm like, I'm not preaching. We're going home. Y'all been dancing for 5 hours. And so that is the major difference. It's not necessarily that you're trying to reach cultures. You're trying to reach a collective culture, and within that collective culture, you're using the means of language to reach them. So I said that culture is created by language, and I'm going to end with this. And I had all kinds of points, but I don't have all the time. Because I want Pastor Nate to come up here, because I want him to give his perspective as well. But I would say this, that language builds culture. And so what we're trying to do in the Spanish-speaking ministries is to interpret a language. But what language are we interpreting? And I know it's like the basic and the most shallow answers are, well, we're interpreting English, Joseph. I know that. But language creates culture. So what language are we interpreting? Are we interpreting an American culture? An American language? Do we want our Hispanic ministry to be assimilated to an American culture? Or are we trying to assimilate them to a kingdom culture?
That's right.
And so that's the goal of Spanish-speaking ministries, is to interpret a language they do not speak. And I'm not talking about English. It's that kingdom culture. It's teaching them the values of putting God first. It's teaching them the values of being at the house of God. One of the biggest struggles in the Hispanic community is that they put work before church. It's more important for them to provide for their family than for them to come listen to you speak for 30 minutes. And that's the challenge, is that you're not interpreting a language. You're interpreting a culture. And it cannot be an American culture. It has to be a kingdom culture. And so I will say this, if you don't speak Spanish, that is not a reason for you not to start a Spanish-speaking church.
Right.
It's not a reason. I have found more men, and they exist. I know them. I'm friends with them. I have found more men that don't speak Spanish that have large Spanish churches and successful Spanish churches than men that speak Spanish. Why? Because they know how to interpret the culture and not the language of English. And Spanish-speaking people are more prone to follow him than they are to follow me. So as long as they see him leading me, they'll follow me. Because all I'm doing is interpreting that culture. And I want Brother Nate to come at this time. I wanted to say, Pastor McCool said it all. You have to have the burden for it. And there was the three principles that I wanted to bring to your attention was, the first one is the clear vision. Have a clear vision, end goal. The second one was interpreting the culture. And the last one was what Pastor McCool touched on was, I'm just an extension of the burden of the McCools and Pastor Whitley. Pastor Whitley come. He's going to wrap it up.
Has anybody got a burden? Man, when I got to Knoxville in 2010, Pastor mentioned it earlier, we lived on the same road going to church, and so you'd come to the one red light right before you get to the church. It's a T, and there's a large park and a school. They have soccer fields. That same soccer field, I had an idea. I was like, man, it'd be really cool if we can get some bottled waters and put our name in Spanish and just go pass those out during the summer months. They're there all the time. So I got to praying, God, we need help in doing this because I can't speak Spanish. I can barely speak English. So we need help. And so God seemed fit to send Joseph and raise up Kami, which, by the way, I was Kami's Spanish teacher, so I have no idea how that worked out. We had a shortage of teachers back in 2013. They're like, Brother Nate, can you go ahead and teach Spanish? I'm like, I don't speak it right. I just hit play and they watched it. But she said, hey, I taught our Spanish pastor Spanish. His wife's Spanish. But Joseph, when he came to, they were starting the church, and I am not a micromanager of a leader. I believe in delegating, and if I see that you are capable, I trust you. I'm not one to constantly come and, he's like, why don't you check on me? I'm like, I don't need to, because I trust you. You're doing the work. If you need something, come to me. I believe in you. And that's our relationship. I don't have to micromanage what they're doing there. And so if he has an idea, if something's not working, let's talk through it. And so we've tried Tuesday night prayer meetings and services. It worked out for a little bit. Then it stopped working out for a little bit. Let's change the night. Okay, let's change the night. This is not working. Let's try something else. We did Sunday afternoon, right after service on Sunday morning. It worked for a little bit before COVID. COVID shut everything down, and really it really squashed their momentum that they had built early on. And so he came to me, and he was very frustrated. Joseph was very, very frustrated. Hey, it's the same people that I've been working with. Some come, some don't. Now COVID's back, or COVID's over, and church is back. They're not coming up. They're not showing up. And he said, well, can we change the time? I said, man, I'll change it. Whatever you feel like you have to do, let's do it. I'm all on board of reaching this community however it seems fit. If it doesn't do it like it does for us if Sunday morning, Sunday night doesn't work for the Hispanic speaking community, we're not going to do that. Do what you have to do that's going to work. And so they changed the time. I think it was 2 o'clock the first time. And he was really frustrated. Like, man, it's just not working out. I said, I have an idea. I said, man, y'all are praying. Y'all having great church. And I said, you tell me that the Hispanic speaking community is very family driven, fellowship driven, community driven. I said, how about we do this? I said, y'all want you to have church 3 times, 3 Sundays in a row. And then the last Sunday, I want you just to eat.
That was the key.
I said, don't pray, don't sing, don't preach. Last Sunday of the month, have a dinner, and that's it. I said, see what happens. And it blew up.
Yeah, 55.
55 show up. And I was like, I'll be there too. So, as you can tell. So, but it worked out that way, and momentum started to pick up. He's like, hey, can we do 4 o'clock? I think that'll take it to the next level. I said, let's go. I said, whatever works, do it. You're the pastor, I'm the overseer, but I'm not going to micromanage it. If you feel that, let's do it. If it doesn't work, we'll try something. I'm not a leader that's afraid to say something didn't work. I'm not afraid to do that. There's some who are just, I'm afraid people are going to think I'm crazy for doing it. How are you going to know unless you try? Yeah. And if it doesn't work, why would you continue to do it? Let's do something else. And so we went to 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden things took off. And so back to, again, I'm not anybody. And I said, hey, man, it'd be really cool if we have a soccer field in our backyard of our church. And I said, really cool to do some type of soccer, something just to have some type of outreach. So I showed up to church on a Tuesday night with Dom. I had to shoot some videos. And I pulled up, and there were some Hispanic men who pulled up in a car, and were like, hey, can we play soccer? I was like, sure, let me call somebody. I called Joseph, I called his brother, I called Matthew. I said, get over here right now. I said, there are some men here ready to play soccer. One woman from that got baptized in Jesus' name. And for the last 8 weeks, we have baptized somebody every Sunday or seen someone get the Holy Ghost. Let's go. If it takes food and soccer, if it works, hey, go do it. If it's just reaching out to you don't have to have an ornate service. That will come. But the issue is, let's go have a burden for people. And God will send, if you will love those who nobody else loves, God will send you everybody that everybody else wants. And I believe that's what's going to happen here. And I believe God's is going to birth a burden in you in this room for a ministry to be birthed in your church. And our model works. Our model might not work for you. That's perfectly acceptable. But you have to do what God has given you and use the talents that God has given you and the ability. I want you to stand to your feet right now. Because let me say this too. I feel like I'm bending over here. What we need to do is this. We had a World Missions Conference last night. Talked about world missions in Latin America. We've got Latin America in your front yard. You got it in your backyard. You got them in your city. You got them in your town. You don't have to go. I'm all for world missions. You know that. But listen, don't have a world missions mindset if you don't have a city mindset where you're at. If you want to reach the world, start where your world begins, and that's your front porch. There are people in your town who need the gospel. God's given us favor, not just with the Hispanic community, but I have Emanuela right here. Emanuela Ali. It's not Ali anymore. She's married. It's Emanuela Cross. She got married last week. But we have an Eastern European community, a large Eastern European community in Knoxville. And we have over 40 Russian, Ukrainian, Moldovan, Romanian children in our school at ACS. You know why? Because they believe in the power of the Holy Ghost, and they love seeing our holiness in our school, in our church. And so we have over. But listen, if you'll get a burden for people, God will send you people to reach. You don't have to listen. I don't speak Spanish, but God sent a man and sent his father and his mother His mother is now our Spanish teacher in our school. Sent his brother, who was backslid and now is part of our ministry at our church and our school. If you have a burden, God will send you people. God will send you help. I want you to lift up your hands right now as we're closing out. We got just 4 minutes. I want you to pray. Father, I want a burden for the people in my city. I may not be able to speak the language, but God, I can speak the kingdom. And I pray right now for every pastor, every minister, every child of God that's in this room. God, that you would give us a vision and a burden for the people in our city. God, but not only would you give us a burden, I pray that you would give us the principles and the precepts to reach those people. God, help us, equip us to reach more people. Help us, God. Give us the mindset of the kingdom. But I pray that you would give us favor in these communities. Give us favor as we reach out to them. All it takes is one. All it takes is one person. And I pray right now, Father, that you would help these people who are desiring to do a work for you, who are desiring to reach more people in their community. I pray right now, Father, your Spirit would just be poured out upon all flesh in this room so we can go out into our cities, into our communities, our neighborhoods to reach people. Lord, let your Spirit so give us favor and providence to reach more people with this blessed gospel of Jesus Christ. If you believe that, I want you to clap your hands unto the Lord today. We're going to reach our world. We're going to reach our world. Let me say this. If you want more information, I highly recommend Pastor Perez, his team, what they're doing. If you have questions, come to him, talk to him, meet with them, find a way that we can help you start a work in your church in some way or shape or fashion. But I just believe God's going to give us favor from this room in Jesus' name. All right, you're dismissed. You can go to your next session. It'll begin here in about 3 minutes.